Good evening, everyone. Councillors, officers, guests, and members of the public who are watching this webinar. Welcome to this Northeast Cambridge Community Forum meeting. My name is Councillor Tumi Hawkins, and I am the lead cabinet member for planning policy and delivery at South Cambridgeshire District Council, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. For the information of everyone present, this forum is a joint forum of the South Cambridgeshire District Council and Cambridge City Council. And the purpose of this forum is to provide updates on progress of the proposed development at Northeast. And it's not just throwing information at you, it is a two-way communication process tonight. So please use the details on the screen for questions that you might wish to ask us this evening. And at the end of the meeting, a poll will pop up on your screen. So please engage and respond to that poll and help us shape the way that we do forums in the future. Before I go on, for the benefit of everyone, if you are speaking live or even to our guests, if you can please use a headset if you have one with a mic to speak, as it will help minimize acoustic problems. Otherwise, do speak clearly and close to the microphone on your laptop or device that you are using. And if I might ask, if there are any members either of South Cambs or Cambridge City who are attending the meeting, if you can use the hands up, raise hand function, and we will acknowledge you as and when we see you popping up. Right, those who are attending tonight are stakeholders who are our County Council, Cambridgeshire County Council, the Greater Cambridge Planning Service, and of course, officers from across both South Cambs and the City Council, Anglia Water, and the developers from the core site. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a series of short presentations, and then we will have some time after that for Q&A. If after each presentation, time for questions, and then at the end we will have a bit more time for general questions and answers. And just to let you know, we will be taking questions in one of two ways. There's a Q&A function on Zoom, if you would like to use that. And also, if you wish to speak and ask your question live, then please use the raise hand function again. And one of the team will point out who it is, and we will let you ask your question. And please, in order to keep timing, keep your vocal questions as succinct as possible, and make sure that you please ask a question rather than make a statement. There's a lot of people attending tonight, so we do need to keep to time. And I'll let you know that questions that we cannot get to or answer tonight, we will publish the answers on our website along with the recording. So, without further ado, can I ask Hannah, who will give us our first presentation, Hannah Loftus. Hannah, unfortunately, has some technical issues with her camera, so you can hear her speak, but you won't be able to see her. But she is here, I promise.
Thank you very much, Tumi, and I hope you can hear me. That's the main thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, apologies, everybody. My camera is not working today. I'm just really giving a very brief update on behalf, I'm not going to show any slides, so on behalf of the Northeast Area Action Plan team, and also just on behalf of the local plan team, just to update you on where we're at. It is very brief because we really are just proceeding as we advised at the last forum meeting a couple of months ago. And the team are working very hard on revising the draft area action plan following all the comments coming in after the consultation last year. And that will be going into a formal member process for member scrutiny at both councils later this year in the autumn. Meanwhile, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we were coming up to quite a big stage in the overall local plan for the area. So the Greater Cambridge local plan is also in development, as I think most of you know, and it is again coming up to a significant milestone because we will be publishing the preferred options. So that's really the first proposals from us as a planning service, bearing in mind all the research and the evidence gathering and the consultation that we've done. The first proposals for the plan will be again published for member scrutiny and member comment through the committee process at the end of the summer, and then they will also go into formal consultation. So it will be a really busy autumn on the planning front in terms of planning policy, and I just urge you all to get involved at the various different stages. That's really for the local plan, which is formal consultation, full public consultation in the autumn. And if you're not already signed up for updates, you can sign up for updates on our website or just email any of our team and we'll make sure that you're on our update list, because we wouldn't want anyone to miss out on commenting at those formal consultation stages. So that's my update, very brief. Thank you very much, Tumi. Back to you.
Oops. Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. I don't know if there are any questions for us on that. I think I spot one.
We do. We have one question to me. What does end of the summer mean in terms of your timeline, Hannah?
Very good question. The member process will start literally, I think it is actually on the 1st of September. So that is the formal member process for the local plan. That's not the formal consultation. So in a way, that's a bit of a preview. But of course, until it's gone through the member process and members have made any amendments that they'd like to make to the plan through the scrutiny process, that is not the final version that we consult on. So the consultation is going to start. I'm pretty sure it will start at the very beginning of November. We are just finalising some of those dates with our colleagues across the councils at the moment, but it is almost certainly likely to be at the very beginning of November, because the member process does take about 6 weeks to go through both councils, quite a long process with 2 councils involved, I'm afraid. And then we need a couple of weeks to prepare after that to make sure we've got everything lined up. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Thank you, Hannah. We don't have any further questions at present, but if people do think of things as we go through the evening, please do put them in the Q&A section. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Julian. Before we move to the next item, I wish to acknowledge some of the local members who are here. We recognize Councillor Anna Bradnam, Councillor Martin Khan, Councillor Claire Daunton. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, next item is the landowners overview. And I think this time we have Matt to take us through that. So over to you, please, Matt.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can see my presentation on the screen. Is that correct? Yep. So yeah, I was.
Nope.
No.
I can see you.
You can see
but
me.
I can't see a presentation.
Okay. Thought I shared the right screen. Try that.
Yes, something is happening.
Something's
That's
happening.
it. Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
Over to you.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm Matthew Patterson, so I'm part of the shared planning service putting together the area action plan for North East Cambridge. It came to our attention that maybe people know about the core site because we've had presentations in the past on the core site, but they might want to know about the other parcels of land, what's currently on those and what is proposed for the future. So I'm just going to run through one slide, hopefully if it works. Yep. It's not very clear, unfortunately, but I will put my cursor over it. This is the area in orange is the extent of the AAP area that goes along the railway corridor here up to the A14 and along, and this is the guided busway. Milton Road is this one here running up, and the guided busway comes down to the station. So it includes some land just to the south of the guided busway as well, but essentially that's the extent of the area. Up in the far corner here is referred to as Wells Triangle. It's a bit of vacant land at the moment. It's kind of hemmed in, if you like, by the A14 and the guided busway and the regional college. So there's not much actually happening on that land currently. We are looking through the AAP at whether there is a connection through, which there is existing a connection under the A14 here, whether that will be enhanced and that piece of land will be developed for some potential use. We haven't actually identified any use of the plan at the moment. B is the Cambridge Regional College. They are included in the plan, not because they're looking to promote development, but mainly because they are still a key contributor, if you like, to traffic movements in the area, and in particular on King's Hedges Road. And it's a regional college, and therefore it has students that come from all over, and we need to take account of their trips and in managing any future development of the area. They will also be keen in terms of vocational training for the construction and post-construction jobs across the area as well, linking into the other business communities that are in the area as well. So looking at the widest gambit of jobs. C is the Cambridge Science Park. Primarily, it's a built in the 1970s, fairly low density science park with individual buildings set out in plots that have large areas of landscape and also surface area parking. The science park has, over the past few years, looked at bringing forward new development proposals that intensify and make greater use of the site, and the AAP seeks to continue to promote that intensification of the use here for employment uses and ancillary uses that support people who work in the park, but also for local areas as well. So the types of uses are further provision of local shops and amenities. Currently there's hardly any on site, as well as some community uses within here as well, gymnasium and the like. D is the St John's Innovation Park. Again, a bit like the Science Park, it's primarily a number of larger buildings set within a landscaped area with surface level car parking. Again, we're working with them to intensify their land use here for primarily employment uses on site, but there will be a strategic connection and link through under the Milton Road actually here that links up the two sites. F is what we refer to as Merlin Place. It's a privately owned site that currently has a building on it that's was occupied by a legal firm, but I think they've now moved on, so I'm not too sure what use is currently in that. But that is obviously, we're looking to redevelop that site so that it provides a proper frontage and active use onto Milton Road. E, you would have heard about substantially. This is the Anglian Water and City Council site. The current use obviously is the wastewater treatment works and the former driving centre, which is now the golf driving range. The AAP promotes the site for mixed use, but primarily residential use on the site, including substantial community uses to support the residential element. So primarily the primary schools, but also community facilities and local amenities by means of shops and other leisure uses. Moving on, we have this plot here, which is G, which is Cowley Road Industrial Estate. Essentially, that is remaining as it is, really, other than we are looking, obviously, to take some of the industrial uses that are currently down on Nuffield Road and relocate them to Cowley Road in a more intensified form. And we're looking to get rid of some of the bad neighbour uses that are in here to make it more compatible with the proposed residential uses on the other side. If we take the count of the little plot of land that's on Milton Road, this is what we refer to as the garages site. This is the car dealerships currently. They are in the current city local plan for mixed use development on that site, and we are promoting that as part of the AAP as well. It just made sense for us to bring it into the area action plan as it's already an allocated site for development, and make sure that it's the uses there are coordinated with what's happening across the other sites. As I've said, down on Nuffield Road, this is the Nuffield Road Industrial Estate. Obviously, it's served via a single access road in through here, and this is primarily residential neighbourhood. We're looking to remove the industrial uses out of this site, and we're promoting residential use primarily on Nuffield Road. At the end of Nuffield Road is Trinity Hill Farm, and we're looking at a mixed-use development there potentially, but at the moment the landowner, who is Trinity Hill College, are promoting it primarily for employment use, which it's currently in. Lastly is this large parcel here, which is L, which is the Network Rail land that's been promoted and brought forward by Brookgate in consortium with DB Schenker. It includes what is the rail sidings and also the rail head that has the aggregates facility on it. That is remaining, and which is why we're looking to effectively screen that off with industrial uses around the aggregates to mitigate against the noise impacts. The remaining parts of this site we're promoting for mixed use development around the town centre, around the station, as well as shops and other amenities to provide a gateway and a nice entrance into Cambridge North East. So that's a fairly broad overview of what we're proposing to do on each of these plots and bring them forward. I think I dealt with J, which I may not have done. J is the Crown. This is the Cambridge Business Park land, which is this bit here. This is currently in business park use, so it's just offices. And with the Crown, we're looking to bring forward this for mixed use, so renewal of the offices, but with further residential development as a mixed use component of that site. So that's broadly it. I was also just going to briefly give an update on other elements of the plan that we're doing. So as Hannah said, we have been summarising, obviously, and reviewing all of the representations we've received to the previous consultation document. These are sort of the broad outcomes of that the spatial framework itself was broadly supported in terms of the distribution of different growth and the mix of growth across the sites. Probably that the office floor space, given the existing office provision within the Cambridge Business Park, St John's and Cambridge Science Park, that providing for further office space was probably too much in terms of the quantums that we were looking at. That there would be a need for further informal open space provision to be provided, in particular around, we realise the impacts of COVID and people's health and wellbeing, and the need for local informal space is essential for that. That building densities and heights were too high, but we got significant support for the protection of the industrial estate in terms of protecting the industrial floor space to be secured on the site as part of its regeneration. And then lastly, whether we've got the balance of the homes and jobs right. I think overall it was felt we could lessen the number of jobs and increase the number of homes, just because to get that balance right across the whole of the AAP area. And just to take you through, we've done further evidence base. So since we last undertook consultation, we've been working with Historic England on a heritage impact assessment that considers building heights against potential impacts on the city's skyline and its heritage value. We've done further analysis on a townscape assessment as well that looks at how the new townscape of NEC will fit in with the existing townscape of Cambridge and the wider area as well in its setting. And the consultants have provided us with some key outcomes to consider in that respect. We've done some further work on a relocation strategy, getting commercial advice about how we will facilitate that consolidation of the industrial use and relocation of those into Cowley Road. We're doing further work on the open space topic paper as well to show how we'll meet the informal open space needs as well as formal open space needs and the narrative around those. And we've been obviously reviewing development capacities, updating our demographics work. We've done further work on noise, design and urban form, and on our transport strategy as well, working closely with the land owners around their own aspirations for place. And then we're doing, this is still work still to come, is around the infrastructure delivery plan and development viability. So that's still coming. And as Hannah said, the next stages for us is to complete the evidence-based studies. Topic papers, we're targeting August for completion of those, and then finalising the pre-submission draft documents and all supporting materials in September. And then we go into the regulatory approval process in October and November on the AAP. And then unfortunately, we then pause the AAP and we await the outcome of the development consent order process for the relocation of the wastewater treatment works. Okay. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think we have some questions, but before we take those, when you were describing the land use for parcel, I think it was G, you mentioned bad neighbor uses. What are bad neighbor uses?
We have on there, you've got a concrete batching plant. So it pretty much makes a lot of noise and a lot of dust. And it's not compatible really with having it with surrounding residential. It's very good to have it in the intervening period because obviously we'll be working and having a concrete batching plant on site is very useful for construction, but in the long term, probably not fit for what we want the future place to be like. Likewise, there's the Viola wastewater treatment plant. It's probably more the location of the Veolia waste facility there, being right on the corner of Cowley Road, which we hope to be the main pedestrian boulevard through. And so we're looking at whether we relocate that internally, probably more towards the aggregates yard, or whether it's appropriate to take that off site. And finally, it's probably Stagecoach as well, which have their huge depot there. It's just the bus movements coming and going all hours of the day, and whether that fits with our future of the place, which is as a walking and cycling neighbourhood, and whether it's appropriate to have hundreds and hundreds of bus movements that aren't really serving our plot, and whether we can find an alternative location for those types of uses. Yeah. Okay, there's a lot to do there. All right, thank you. Looking at the Q&A boxes here, we've got Frances from Marmalade Lane. And her question is there any potential for community-oriented projects in the Wells Triangle, perhaps a community garden? Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential to look at that site for a lot of different uses. Like I say, it's in private ownership at the moment. We need to understand exactly what that private owner might be looking for, but we could certainly influence those decisions in terms of even linking up with what the Cambridge Regional College are doing around vocational training on green infrastructure and things like that, which would be key, I think, as well.
Okay, thank you. There's also a question about, is the Area E, where the wastewater is currently located, owned solely by Anglian Water?
No, that was two parcels. So it was the Anglian Water site and also the City Council's site, which is the former driving centre and now golf driving range.
Okay, that was easy. Next question here is from Anna Williams, who says, are the decisions about land use ultimately down to the developers? I'm disappointed to hear that Northfield Road is no longer proposed for mixed use.
No, it's not primarily down to the developer, but they are key. If they don't want to bring forward their site for what we want it to come forward for, then it won't ever happen. So we need to work with the landowners to understand what they want to do, and they need to understand what we would like the land use to be on their sites. I think Nuffield Road is a thorny one for us, in that we want to promote mixed use along there, but at the same time, the reason we've got it in the plan is to address the traffic impacts of commercial use on what is essentially a residential street and neighbourhood and area, and therefore we have to be mindful of that.
Okay, so this will have to be I guess a compromise between the developers and ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, at times, hopefully, in the vast majority of instances, we're aligned in what we want. Other times, we have to do some hard negotiating with the developers to say, yes, that may be what you would like that land use to come forward for, but given what we want the area to look like or what our needs are for the place, actually, these are the types of land uses that the local planning authority and ultimately the community would think are more acceptable. Okay,
so there's negotiations to be had there. Well, I hope they are broadly in line with what we are hoping will be will be brought forward on the sites. There's a question here from a Peter who says, what developments in the UK have a density comparable with proposals for the NEC?
Yeah, there's lots. I mean, and we've done a typologies paper, and you can go into that and you can see the different densities. There's lots of examples, even from in Cambridge itself, where we're using similar typologies to recent developments, as well as other examples from around the UK. So yes, we're well within and significantly below some of the densities that are coming forward in places like Central London.
Okay, is it possible to provide a link to the work so that people can actually go have a look?
Yeah, certainly we can.
At some point.
To this. Yeah, I'll drop it into the chat.
Thank you. Next question asks, are you looking at the potential impacts of COVID on long-term home working?
Yeah, definitely. And we're from two aspects. Obviously, it may reduce the need for office, although when we've discussed this with those who do office markets, generally they think it will recover and will continue to thrive in terms of Cambridge office market. They don't see any real downturn as a result of COVID. But we do think that there will be significant opportunity for people that wish to homework to do that. Mm. We're obviously looking at ensuring that we make provision for home working, but also that you have drop down space and other things where you can get out of the home and not go into the office, but still do your work in a different environment if that's what suits people as well. And we think overall it's going to have a significant benefit for traffic movement in the area. Certainly people not having to come into the existing science parks or business parks, and a lot of the residents not travelling out to jobs either. We've got sustainable means by which they can do that, but ideally it's going to hopefully significantly reduce traffic overall.
Well, that's the hope. This might be a more difficult one. I don't know. How long will it take to remediate the land the sewage plant is on, and what will be the cost? Is that probably a question for Anglian Water?
I think so. I know that Anglian Water have done a phase 1 land contamination study, and the results of that don't show that there are significant showstoppers on the site, and therefore they'll be factoring in that remediation period, and also what the costs of that are. But no, it's not something that we're privy to at the moment.
No, I think perhaps I will ask the question again when we have the Anglian Water presentation.
Yeah.
So I'll mark that one. Ryan, can you just please mark that one for me so that we don't forget it? Next question says, given the proximity of the site to the guided busway and Cambridge North, and given the evidence from the junction, but the distances that people will travel, what scope is there for a small stroke medium-sized community theatre performing arts music venue of a similar size to the junction?
Yeah, so we did a lot of community consultation, and this is one of the things that came up through our cultural evidence-based study that we did on cultural and leisure provision. And we are looking at whether we can provide some sort of small theatre or performing arts. It may be associated with one of the schools, or it may be associated with some of the uses within the Cambridge Science Park in particular, who are looking at conferencing facility, which isn't too dissimilar in terms of making that sort of space multi-purpose and multifunctional in terms of providing for other uses, such as a venue for other cultural activities. Okay,
certainly. Well, it'd be good to have, you probably have similar questions coming up with people wanting other things, that make a community. Next question. I think this is Councillor Steve Hunt from South Cambs. I hope it is. Hello, Councillor Hunt. His question is, how will you address concerns rebuilding height and density, and also increase open space without drastically reducing the number of dwellings and industrial floor space that the development will achieve?
Yeah, so in particular, we're obviously looking at reducing the amount of commercial, given people's comments about getting the balance between homes and jobs right. So that obviously frees up quite a bit of the site that then can go over to open space provision as well, and secures that. And it allows us probably to reduce densities as well. So that's essentially what we're doing. And in the new draft plan, you'll see a reduction in heights anyway.
Okay, I think you mentioned in your presentation that there was still some work ongoing on open spaces. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah. So we're still doing some work on the open spaces. Again, we are meeting or seeking to meet the informal space standards of the City Council on site, and then looking at strategic provision for the formal open spaces that would benefit not just the NEC, but all of North East Cambridge and surrounding areas in terms of its provision.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question. Welcome, former Councillor Hazel Smith. It's good to see you here with us. And the question is there no question of access from Milton Road into Northfield Road?
We have looked at this. Obviously, we don't. It's mainly for the county who have informed us that because of the guided busway, where the guided busway goes, and how close the distance is to, if you were to punch through and provide an access, that it just doesn't work from a transport perspective.
Okay, I don't know if there are any transport people here who might like to expand on that. We have our county council.
Hi there.
Hello, David. Welcome.
Hi there. David Allett here, Growth and Development Manager at the county and Transport Assessment Manager, been involved in supporting the transport evidence base. I think what Matt's described is right in that just the technical ability to deliver that connection within the space available is extremely difficult, and that's been investigated as part of the transport work for the area. I mean, I can take it away and provide the highways engineers list of reasons and where we got to on that, and circulate that separate to the meeting, but it has been investigated.
Okay, I think that will be helpful, because obviously, you know, I'm sure this is not going to be the only time that this question will be asked. And it will be helpful for the communities to actually understand the reason why that decision is being taken the way it is. So thank you. And the next question is from Councillor Anna Bradnam. The Crown site, which is the Cambridge Business Park, is a good employment site as it is. I'm surprised you're envisaging changing to mixed use.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where we negotiated with the existing landowner, the Crown, and we obviously want to see housing alongside employment, and we want to make best use of that existing site. It will continue to be a fantastic site for employment, but it can be both, given its location, essentially, you know, on the right beside a transport network, really. So yeah. Okay.
I think we have just looking at the time. Yeah, okay, a few more questions and then we'll go on to the next one. For Trumpington Meadows, there were proposals for live-work units. Has this been considered for Northeast Cambridge?
Yeah, we have. The only issue with live-work units is how you secure the work element of them. They tend to be initially live-work units, and then over time just become larger live units without the work element. So that tends to be an enforcement issue that we've had in the past, and it's one where we'd rather tackle home working in a different way and looking at how you can accommodate that within the building itself in terms of ensuring space is adequate to facilitate home working, or looking at the alternative, which is having separate drop-down spaces within places where people can come to do that kind of home working.
Okay. All right. What impact on Cambridge housing need will this have, considering it will not start until 2028 and take 20 years to complete?
Yeah, so this is obviously, we're working with the local plan to understand exactly how many units we will be providing towards the local plan housing target over our plan period as well. And we still think we would be delivering somewhere in the region of about 250 to 350 units per annum. So it'll make a significant contribution.
Okay. But those numbers you've quoted are the sorts of the current numbers that we have from large sites.
Yeah.
Do you reckon there's any prospect of that being improved upon?
Yeah, I think we're being relatively conservative for the purposes of making sure we've got enough housing sites in the local plan, and we've got a good supply of housing. What we don't want to do is over egg it and not have enough supply at the end of the day. So it's best to be cautious, really.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Matt. You were grilled quite a bit there. I think our next presentation is from Fiona Bryant from Cambridge City, who will be talking about the core site. So over to you, Fiona. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Hopefully, Ryan is very kindly going to put up my slides. Just a quick introduction for anyone who doesn't know me. I'm Fiona Brandt. I'm the Director of Enterprise and Sustainable Development at Cambridge City Council. I'm the City Council lead for the development of the core site, as we call it, which you will know from tonight as being the site E on the plan that Matt was showing. Last time at this forum, I gave a brief sort of introduction to some of the work we're doing around the principles for development that we're looking at. Obviously, the development is at a very early stage. As you can see, the planning framework is progressing, and you will hear from Karen Barclay shortly around progress on the relocation project for the water treatment plant. So the subsequent development, obviously still subject to planning frameworks, planning and the water treatment plant moving, is at very early stages. I gave a brief introduction of the sort of principles we were talking about last time. Tonight, we're short of time. I'm going to focus on 3 key areas. But as you can see from this slide, just to say that the core site does clearly sit right at the heart, right in the middle of the new district in Cambridge, we are looking at you know, bringing forward the site under some really key promises around engaging with the widest possible number of people to actually help us look at the design and obviously future construction of it, and trying to ensure that we aspire to not only the communities, the residents and the city's desire to address the climate change issue, but also Anglian Water and Cambridge City's own and South Cambs's aspirational targets, and certainly for us in Anglian Water, who own the site, that is to target net zero carbon for our performance by 2030. So it is quite an aspirational target from that point of view, but a necessary one. Next slide, please, Ryan. So the first thing I'm just going to remind people of, and this is something I said last time, these are the 3 promises that have been agreed to for us to think about, and the principles we're going to work to every time we are talking about development of the site. So we are working to ensure that it's going to support health, happiness and well-being of the people who live, work and spend time here. And I think that last bit is very important. As Matt has said, across the AAP, there will be a combination of mixed uses and allow people to live and work in the same area, and hopefully reduce the amount of travel that they need to do. But I think it's really important that we also ensure that it integrates with the rest of the city and the closest adjacent areas of South Cambs, Greater Cambridge. So obviously it isn't just about people who live and work here. It will be about making sure that it provides opportunities for the people who live close by, and that they want to spend time there as well, even if they don't live or work there. We want to make sure that it's an integral new quarter of Cambridge. It obviously needs to be rooted in Cambridge, take inspiration from the current city. We need to work with citizens to look at their present needs and their future needs, and ensure that it does meet those future needs. And certainly in terms of sustainability, we are looking for it to be an exemplar for development, fit for the challenges of the 21st century, the current ones and future ones, and making sure that we make the most of the nature and accelerate that transition to a net zero carbon world. Next slide, please, Ron. I'm just going to start. I'm going to talk about engagement and how we plan to go forward in a minute, but I'm just going to start with what we call meanwhile use. And for those of you who don't know what that is, a meanwhile use is a really important part of development of the sort of scale that we're talking about. And it's about engaging with business, with customers, with the communities in temporary or longer term uses that we hope will also support the longer term development on that site, but also engage people in the interest of helping start that process. And obviously we've also looked, as Matt has talked about, looked at the impacts of COVID and what will happen and what has happened, and the huge amount of work that the mutual aid groups and others and councillors and the community have done in terms of working with the vulnerable, and particularly those who are isolating during the COVID practice, and those who have suffered the impact of redundancy, for example, despite support, and have needed to take advantage of food hubs. So we're looking at three main uses for the Meanwhile use. The first is working with organisations that I'm sure many of you will be aware of, to develop a location for a food hub and a new local food ecosystem. That is primarily through distribution and maybe incubator kitchens. And certainly we're looking in the long-term plan of encouraging that ecosystem that will include things like community gardens and space and you know, workshops and other things to help sort of build that whole ecosystem. Secondly, we are looking to try and engage interest from businesses and individuals who may be interested in working medium and longer term on the site. And therefore, we will be looking to provide in the interim some affordable workspace, and we do mean that affordable workspace targeted at very micro local startup businesses who maybe can't find or afford the type of space that they would like in the rest of the city, maybe linked to sustainable food and also adapting or addressing the climate emergency. And thirdly, and I'm sure everyone will be aware of this, one of the key ways of helping to ensure that we are also looking at climate change and the net zero carbon challenge is to increase the level of or increase the modern methods of construction that will be used on the site to develop it. And that means that we need to be building those skills and we need to be building that capacity as soon as we can. And the closer you can do that to site, if not on site, obviously the better, because it helps reduce those CO2 emissions. So we will be looking at developing a modern method of construction factory, teaching some construction skills and transferring employment, particularly for disadvantaged young people who we would hope to get interested in those schemes. And obviously technology changes and needing the different skills to address that climate challenge will be really important. So those are the sorts of uses that we're looking at to bring forward at an earlier stage, called Meanwhile use, but hopefully we will be using them to also help inform us and underpin the longer term plans for what is developed on the site. Thank you. Next slide, please, Ron. Thank you. The second part I want to look at is stakeholder engagement. As I suggested, it is very early stages for this. So we are currently in the process of reaching out to a number of organisations that are based in or around the city across a number of different themes. And at the moment, that includes about 45 different organisations that we are approaching for an initial one-hour stakeholder interview. We are planning very shortly a soft launch of a website, primarily at this stage, because it is very early stages. The website will actually be more about getting people to register their interest, and so that we can have them on the list for feedback when we do launch the proper website later in the year. And that will obviously, the further launch will obviously include more, but we're really keen to engage and get people who are interested so that we know to approach you later on. This is about building relationships with key stakeholders and key stakeholder groups. We also are looking to establish a mailing list through the website. The engagement that we do this year will very much be in line with the principles we've talked about, asking people for what they would like to see on the site, what their needs are, how they want to live, working with all demographic groups, all communities, you know, all and particularly targeting some of the harder to reach groups or traditionally harder to reach groups. And we are planning a longer sort of period of engagement via a festival early in 2022, and we'll be providing some more information on that later in the year. So just to summarize, this period is very much about those early relationships, really early engagement, and building those relationships, facilitating the sort of the inclusive engagement by partnering and working particularly with hard to reach groups, and communicating key messages about the project and its vision. Thank you, Ran. Final slide, I think, from me. And the last bit, and I know everyone's really interested, is about the sustainability and the promise around that. Clearly, for a site like this, it's really critical that we actually do a lot of research and benchmarking and agree the targets, the metrics we're going to use, so that we can not only monitor but feedback and demonstrate progress against those. Partly this is around sustainability. So at the moment we're looking at the research and benchmarking into those frameworks, whether it's donut economics, whether it's the UN Sustainable Development Goals, looking at UK and global projects, aligning with national and international requirements, as well as our own and Anglian Water's commitments and aspirations. We would hope by later in the year we should be able to get to a point where we can set the overarching targets, and then we will be obviously testing approaches and options for achieving those, and developing those into more detailed strategies and targets. Just alongside this work on the sort of broader sustainability, we're actually working also with the Quality of Life Foundation, who are developing a framework that looks at perhaps some of the more key themes that relate to quality of life, and we're hoping to work with them as a pilot project for including those within, in a more detailed way within our metrics and targets. That's where we are at the moment. That's just a very brief glimpse into 3 areas we're looking at, or we're working on at the moment. And obviously, as we move forward, we will be able to give more information. As soon as we do launch the interim site, I will make sure that you have the website address in the via the chat or via the website, the community forum website. Please do, or rather please don't expect too much information from it when you go on it at the moment, but please do register your interest, because we are really keen to work with you. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that, Fiona. Quite interesting to see those 3 key meanwhile uses that are being proposed for this site. I'm quite interested in the 3rd one, the MMC. Can I just ask a very quick question before I go to the other questions we have from the attendees? I think it was the 2nd slide, we had a festival item early 2022. I'm not sure I heard what that was about. If I've missed it, apologies.
So really, it will be, well, to be fair, I think we've got more work to do on it at the moment, but it's basically will be at still at an early stage, and it'll be about a number of things that will come out of our engagement program this year, and will start helping to underpin the vision and values for the core site. So it's likely to be over a week, probably primarily over 2 weekends, but likely to be over a week. And it may be a number of different things, whether it's workshops about how you might, for example, how you might achieve a site that is developed within Donut Economic Framework, or ideas for that, ideas for technologies, what people would like to see, how they want to live in future, how they might do things differently in future, number of workshops involving schools and young people about literally using sort of models and things like that. It'll be a range of activities around engaging people at that sort of really early stage. Francis, actually, I don't know whether Francis would like to say anything more about it, but it is, we haven't got the final dates yet. We will be providing more information when we can, but it will be in the spring of 2022, and it will sort of be informed by the programme of engagement we're doing this year, and then move that forward into a range of activities, really. Francis, could I ask you just to add anything more if you like?
Thank you, Fiona. I wasn't expecting to talk. That's your swap to my town and core site happen. I don't think I'd actually have anything to add. It is really going to be focusing on the vision for the core site, around the promises and the values and what that looks like in practice, and really drawing on what we can learn from other countries and about, as well as what we learn from engaging with people and organisations within the community. And some of those activities will be really practical. One particularly I'm rooting for is planting lots of bulbs along the guided busway. Hopefully it's something that would have a very long-term impact. So a whole range of things still being scoped out, and we'll have news at some point to share.
Right. Thank you, Francis. I think I've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes for a couple of questions. I understand Councillor Anna Bradnam wanted to ask a question. Would you like to unmute, please, and ask your question?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. My question is, in your slide about meanwhile uses, and you talked about a Cambridge food hub, and I'm very glad to see that many of these uses reflect what's currently going on, for example, units at Cowley Road, which is very good, and supporting for employment for adults with learning difficulties and that sort of thing, and that's quite good, looking at construction skills and such like. But one of the things I wanted to check with you, currently that site houses the Cambridge Food Hub, and you said in your slide, new innovative local food ecosystem for the city. Now currently the Cambridge Food Hub supports South Cambs as well, and I just wanted to check with you that the intention would be to continue to support South Cambs as well, not just the city.
Absolutely. The intention will be to develop what we've got and grow it, not to suddenly, the people don't live on boundary lines, or rather, they might live on them, but it doesn't work like that. So yes, we would. That wasn't intended to mean it was just for the city. It was more intended to mean that's what we'd like to do on that site, which happens to sit within the city.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And I will take just one more question and then we'll move on to the next speaker. Councillor Daunton, please.
Right. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thanks very much, Fiona. I'm just wondering how you're going to engage with organisations that represent older people. Clearly, a development where one shouldn't need to own a car, drive a car, would be very attractive to older people who have to give up their car for whatever reason. And how are you going to bring that important voice into the design of the development?
Well, certainly, the organisations that we're starting to engage with this year, we're engaging across the demographics. If you have any particular suggestions of organisations that are more based perhaps around older people that we haven't got on that list, we're absolutely willing, and I think I've written to ask for suggestions to be added to that list. So that would be really helpful, but certainly we're starting with a cross section And yeah, it's really important to engage with the needs of all, you know, all the age groups that may well be living on that site, and you know, there will be lots of the same needs, and one of those might be obviously ease of walking, cycling, and accessing facilities within a reasonably close geographic proximity, and particularly where those are planned to fit around whether for, you know, younger parents, it might be for school drop off and they can then go on to other things very easily. But for older people, they may have different needs and may like to see different, you know, different developments, and you know, and the same with younger people in terms of how, you know, how they live and how they will live in the future. So we will be engaging with a range of groups, but if anyone's got any particular suggestions, then please let us know. We're really keen to work with as many people as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Fiona. Thank you, Claire. Right, we will now move on to our last presentation, which is from Karen Barclay from Anglian Water. Over to you, Karen.
Good evening, everybody. Can I just say everybody can hear me? And I've also got with me Councillor Hawkins, Mark, Malcolm. So it's great to be back at the forum this evening. Hi, Mark. Can see you too. So yes,
thank you. Welcome, Mark. Over to you both.
Thank you too.
Great, thanks. So we're planning to update you on the Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant Relocation Project, and I came to the forum last time and covered a lot of the background to the project and why we're proposing to relocate the treatment plant. So tonight's plan is to focus on the current phase of consultation, which launched on the 23rd of June and presents all of our proposals for the new facility, which I thought would be of most interest this evening. And for those that don't know me, I am Karen Barclay, leading the public consultation of the project, and Mark.
Sorry, yes, hi, Mark Malcolm. I'm Anglian Water's Programme Director for the relocation project.
Thanks, Mark. And Ryan's kindly also offered to control our slides as well. So if we can move on to the next slide, Ryan, that's great. Thank you. So I thought it was just worth underlining, and I think this photograph sums it up quite nicely, where the existing facility is, and it's a facility that's been serving the area of Cambridge and Greater Cambridge for over 100 years now. And as Fiona and Matt have described in their presentations this evening, we are planning to build a new modern wastewater treatment facility for Greater Cambridge, precisely because this frees up this existing site and enables that vision for the core site and that wider area action plan that Fiona and Matt have outlined this evening. So I think that picture sums up the location and its proximity to the New Cambridge North Station and the surrounding employment areas quite nicely. And then, Ryan, if we move on the next slide, I just thought it was worth orientating everybody exactly where we are in the project and the timeline of consultation. So we launched the project in the summer last year and held the first phase of consultation, and that really helped us on a number of levels. We received some great feedback from the community and other stakeholders, and it also helped us to make a final decision on the new site for the new facility. And we announced that site in January this year, and we've been taking on board all of the feedback that's come back from that earlier phase of consultation and the input from community and technical working groups. And I think I've seen a number of members here this evening that have been joining some of our community working groups. And that's really helped develop our proposals, which are, as I say, presented in the current phase of consultation. And hopefully many of you have been able to access some of those materials, and I'll cover at the end where you can access those materials to give us your further feedback. So we've also been out in the site, and many of you may have seen some of our teams on the site itself and the surrounding area carrying out environmental and ground investigation surveys, and that's been informing our design too. And as the next few slides will show in terms of the vision and how we've been taking on board that feedback, and very much want further feedback ahead of the final phase of consultation, as it said at the end there, which will come early 2022. So if we can move on, Ryan, thank you. So as it says there, Anglian Water's vision does go beyond just building a new plant. It's not simply about moving the old facility to a new location. And it's quite an exciting prospect for a water and a wastewater treatment company to build a new facility of this size, serving as large a population as Greater Cambridge. And we do want it to be a facility of the future. We regard wastewater as a valuable resource, and we think there's a great deal more that we can do with the opportunity of a new plant in optimising the recycling of it, the use of those recovered nutrients to help farmland, and also its ability to generate renewable energy, also to heat, to power the plant itself. And our proposals include how it will be an energy neutral plant and heat homes and all that before returning the clean water to the River Cam. And obviously the flows provide a really significant, play a significant role in maintaining the flow of the River Cam as well. A lot of our proposals as well, and the feedback that we've taken on board from the first phase of consultation, we've thought really hard about how we can use the opportunity to develop the area surrounding the plant itself in creating new habitats for wildlife. And also a point of feedback that came back really strongly was about the access to the countryside, and I think that's been really important during these pandemic times. And our proposals also include some ideas for how we can better connect to some of the existing footpaths and create new access. If we can move to the next slide, Ryan. I just thought it was worth underlining some of the design principles that have been really underpinning and driving some of the proposals that are now presented in the consultation, and we'll come on and share with you some of those visuals. And that is, as it says on that top bullet there, creating a state-of-the-art low-carbon water recycling centre. It is absolutely the commitment that we spoke about at the previous forum on occasions in the past about reducing the footprint, and the plant itself will be around 22 hectares, and that's about half the size of the existing plant. Odour was obviously a real concern from a community perspective, particularly given the experience of the existing facility. So we've really looked at the engineering and the design processes to think about how we can incorporate solutions and really minimise odour at source. There's lots of more information and more specific information in the consultation material on that. Visual impact, it is an open landscape and we're really sensitive to where it sits in the landscape. So we've come up with quite an innovative design which screens a lot of the plant using the excavated material from the plant itself and the tunnelling. And that does provide a screen. It also provides quite a strong identity for the plant. I don't think there's many other water treatment or wastewater treatment plants which look like the design that's come through this process. And obviously, as it says there, it will reduce carbon and traffic impacts in construction as well. Delivering that environmental and landscape enhancement that I've already spoken about, and responding very much to the needs and aspirations of the local community, and that's really comes strongly through the access piece to the countryside, but also tying into the Wickham Fen Vision area where this site sits in the southern end of, and also the recent plans and proposals that have been published around the Cambridge nature networks as well. And as it says in the top right hand side there, we've continued to have the support and challenge of the Design Council, and that's been really helpful in terms of making sure the standards of the design are really, really high. So the next slide, Ryan, thank you, just gives a bit of a sort of more colour as to how we've been inspired by that landscape-led approach that I've described, and how we hope our design proposals will support and over time enhance the natural environment. We've had the help of some local architects that know the area and know the landscape very well. And as I say, we've been tying in our proposals and ideas with Cambridge Past, Present and Future, National Trust and Wildlife Trust as well. And as you can see, we've looked very much at the local Fen Edge character and really been inspired in that centre kind of ring there shows the early inspiration and the circular theme that came through those early design proposals.
How many more slides do you have, if I might ask?
We've got about half a dozen more, but they're
you don't have that much time.
Great. If we go to the next one then, Ryan, that is the plant itself, and that gives a bird's eye view with A14, just to orientate everybody. And then the next slide just gives a bit more of a sense as to what that screening and that earthwork bank that I described looks like, with a more natural screen on top. And there's lots of options in the consultation material that describe that. The next slide, Ryan, gives more of a sense of a more structured, engineered screening. And then there's just a couple of others to give people a flavour of some of the other viewpoints. Brilliant. And we're also planning to include a discovery centre as well, because we take our roles and responsibilities in terms of providing an educational resource and supporting the sustainability curriculum and letting people get up close to wastewater treatment processes, which is really, really important from a sustainability perspective. I think the next slide, Ryan, just then brings to life a bit more those details that I just spoke about in terms of providing access. So the yellow dots provide some new footpaths and connect up with existing footpaths, and that provides around a 3.5 kilometre new loop. Then the pinky purple line there is a new bridleway that we're proposing, which again would loop up to the existing bridleway network and create a new 9.5 kilometre loop. There's lots of proposals, if we go to the next slide, Ryan, in the material around the landscape proposals, and the 22 hectare plant itself, there's about 25 hectares of proposed new woodland and 35 hectares of proposed new grassland, and we're seeking to get input from the community as to what they'd like us to see in terms of that development of that wider area. And then Mark, I think you're going to, there's just a couple of slides left just to talk about odour and carbon.
I've taken the hint to be quick, so that's fine. So I guess we just, as Karen said, we're well aware that odour is really an important aspect to be mitigated. And there's a number of things we're doing. There's significantly more covering of process units. It's the positioning of process units as well. A key aspect is sort of the design and the avoiding turbulence, basically in the water flows as they go through, and then odour scrubbing as well. And so we've put significant effort already into odour modelling. There's quite a bit more information on the publicly available info on odour as well. But I guess our commitment is that there will be negligible levels only at all receptors around us. And then just to flick onto the next, if we may, just a quick comment on our carbon and climate commitments. So this plant will end up being operationally net zero by 2030, once built from an operational perspective. And the main contributors to that is there'll be a gas to grid system whereby we're effectively harvesting the biogas that comes off the treatment process, cleaning it up and then putting it into the national gas network. There'll be an element of renewable energy through solar as well. And then we're looking at water recycling and heat recovery technologies in addition to that. And then just a quick comment on the embedded carbon, the sort of construction carbon as such, through selection of materials, technology, sort of earthworks and offsite fabrication and such. We expect to have a significantly reduced carbon footprint in the embedded carbon piece. That won't get to zero, that piece, but the operational element will do. So both of those really important, I guess, linked very closely to comments that Fiona made earlier as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Now we can open for questions. And I think what we'll do is take questions specifically for you, Karen and Mark, if there are any of those, and then we can come to the general Q&A for all the questions.
Sure.
Thank you,
You wanted to return to the earlier one, Councillor Hawkins, the decommissioning one.
Yes. Thank you. Let's take that first.
I'll just touch on that briefly. So we're in detailed conversations with the Environment Agency, who we get the permits from, and they're obviously important on those regulations. So in terms of what's required, and I guess essentially what we'll be doing is to make safe and decontaminate the area as required. There isn't a significant contamination, but it's obviously been a wastewater treatment plant. That sits within the relocation contract. And then going forward in terms of the future development contract with the master developer, they would then take the area from that position of made safe and decontaminated and move it forward. And in terms of duration and cost, we're working on both of those. I guess duration would be a sort of 3 to 9 month type period, and cost is being worked on at the moment.
Okay, I'm sure you will get the question come up again at some
yes,
point.
happy to.
So hopefully you will have the answers by then.
Yeah, indeed, it's a work in progress. Thanks.
Okay, cool. I think I spied one for you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be able to attend some face-to-face meetings now restrictions are being lifted?
Thank you, and thanks, Margaret, for the question. And yes, we are actually in touch with all the parish councils. Even before the announcement about the restrictions being lifted, we'd offered to come and host some kind of pop-up type events in parish councils or village halls, and display some of the materials on large format boards. But yes, we're also happy to come out and attend meetings as would be required, or people would like us to. So happy to be flexible with that.
Okay, and I presume they know how to get hold of you.
They do indeed, yes.
It's in the consultation paperwork. Okay. At this point, if I might ask our panelists to please all put their videos on, and we'll start taking the questions that have been asked, and any more that do come up. I think if I could ask for, I don't know who might want to answer this. Still on the wastewater treatment plant. Is it sustainable to move the sewage plants to the green belt? This development comes with a huge price off-site. Why are you not acknowledging this? I would like to answer. Shall I?
I can take that one.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so when we started preparing the AAP back in 2014, we obviously went out with what was issues and options in 2014 that looked at retention of the wastewater treatment site in its current place, looking at the option of consolidation as well on the site, its existing site, and then obviously the option of relocation off-site as well. Through the work that we did on those, obviously, if it stays where it is, there's not much development potential anywhere around the site. It would only be for sort of light industrial uses. And then with consolidation on site, there was long discussions with Anglian Water about the technical feasibility of being able to deliver that. And it's not very easily deliverable on site, in particular, trying to do a consolidated plant facility while maintaining the existing operational facility, which you'd need to do at the same time. And even if it was technically feasible, it doesn't actually free up much land for development. You'll still have the odour issues. So it doesn't actually allow us to bring forward significant regeneration in that area. And there is significant investment in the infrastructure in particular. You've got Cambridge North Station, you've got the guided busway, and it's an area on the edge of Cambridge. I think what's probably not included in that question is the alternative would be that all of the housing that's proposed for Northeast Cambridge doesn't disappear as well. You've got to consider where the contribution that the housing is making to Greater Cambridge's housing needs would then have to be met elsewhere, and where that would need to be met. And that has to be factored into that sort of overarching impact assessment. And essentially, it looks, and we're following government policy here around making best use of land in urban areas and trying to meet as much as needs as possible within those areas. And yes, that means that the wastewater treatment plant necessarily needs to be relocated to facilitate that.
Okay. And I guess it's a project that's been identified as being important strategically to the region. which is why there's been government funding for it.
Yeah, in particular, you know, the HIF funding acknowledges that Cambridge has a significant housing need that it needs to meet, and that's not an easy it's not an easy solution to meet that housing requirement, and therefore the government has had to step in this instance to provide funding, or elsewise it's just not a viable option.
Sounds like we're between a rock and a hard place. Okay, so if I go back to some of the earlier questions, if we can take that very quickly, because we've got about 10 minutes before we're due to end, but obviously we'll try and answer as many as we can for those who've asked questions. And the ones, as I said earlier on, the ones that we don't get to, we will provide answers, written answers on the website after the meeting. So what specifically will there be for teenagers under 18s, especially those on low incomes?
I'm assuming this is around within the open space provision that we're.
Yeah, I suspected it was asked about 6:30. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are looking at a range of different uses. Ideally, we're through the planning process, we're setting aside the space to provide a number of different uses. They could be skateboard park, or it could be, you know, any type of kind of outdoor facilities. You're looking at multi-use games areas, the kind of basketball court kind of provision that they have in local parks and things like that. So there could be a range of things. I think once the open spaces get established, we'll look at what is needed to serve the area and meet the needs of all its residents, including those in that age group. Yeah.
Well, I presume we are open to suggestions anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, we will be, and
ideas.
You know, and things will change as long as we've secured the open space. We can, you know, amend it, adapt it as we see fit to meet needs moving forward.
And will there be roof gardens as open space?
Yeah, definitely. Roof gardens, balconies, and private amenity space, communal amenity space. We're looking at courtyards, livable streets, none of which through Cambridge's own informal space policy actually count towards that open space provision, informal open space provision. But there will be lots of that. And we're looking at growing space on roofs as well for ensuring that, you know, you can do growing, and looking at allotments, different provision for those, as well as how we landscape the area to make sure that it's meets biodiversity targets, but also growing, community growing spaces and everything else. Yeah. Okay,
that's great. Will you make provision for hot desking office space for people who want to work from home but do not have space?
Yeah, I think that's what when I was talking about drop down spaces, that's what I was. That's what you meant. That sort of hot desking space, you know, offices, and I think Fiona was talking about that as well. She's talking about incubator space and move on space, but as part of that, there's a wide range of different kind of options, and yeah, managed workspace will be one of those. Targeted probably towards you know, the residential people who, you know, get bored working from home. I think we all do at the moment, staring out at the same view, and it's nice to have a change of scenery with great broadband, better broadband than hopefully you've got at home. So yeah, there'll be those. We're all suffering
from that, aren't we?
Yeah. So I think all of us would like a different change of scenery, and we will necessarily meet those needs because they are crucial needs.
Very important.
Forward, I think. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing we've learned from the last 15 to 18 months. Yes, we will provide the answer on the access, the transport one from County Council. So that's done. Has the assessment of height of buildings and potential light pollution taken account of impact on rural areas to the north, such as Fen Ditton and Horningsea?
Yeah, so we undertook a visual impact and landscape assessment that considered both of those elements, and in particular, it looks at this. It identifies the sensitive edge being the bit that borders the fen landscape, if you like, and therefore it proposes much lower building heights in those areas. And scales up. And given the, you're talking about 180 hectare development site, it kind of blends up, and therefore you won't see it from those long distances. So they've done. I
suspect there's, yeah. I think there's also the issue of light pollution, isn't there?
Yeah, and that takes account of light pollution as well. There is already light pollution within the area, but there's ways and means that we manage that better these days through, in particular, street lighting and stuff. But we need to make sure that, because we want it to be an accessible, cyclable, walkable area, we want it to be safe as well. So we're going to need that lighting to work at the local level, at least. But we hope to, lighting has moved on significantly. They can do the focused lighting down so that it doesn't impact that. And we've got issues, obviously, with bat movements from Cambridge Science Park in particular over into the River Cam, and light is one of the key impacts of that. So we'll need to manage that too.
Okay, thank you. Next question says, have you conducted work mobility studies to assess how many people continue to work in an area in which they live, recognizing that Cambridge is high tech, which encourages job mobility?
Yeah, and certainly in the evidence base for the transport work, we're looking at, we look at job mobility, but primarily we're looking at internalisation, trying to provide housing as close to the employment as possible to minimise that as well. But yeah, I mean, we recognise that job mobility is, one of the key aspects of working in Cambridge, is the opportunity that people have to ready job markets. For NEC, it's about ensuring that we've got sustainable transport connections to get people where they need to be, whether that's into the Cambridge and Science Park and the business parks, or to other parts of Cambridge in a most sustainable way.
I guess this is probably where the question probably arises to county council highways people about how they're going to manage the traffic if we then find that there's a lot more coming out of there than we initially envisaged, considering it's already a very busy junction.
It is. So yeah, the essence of the approach and the design is about encouraging internalisation and sustainable transport use, and that's at the heart of how we're designing it in. We're setting a trip cap on the development that restricts the amount of vehicles that will be able to leave. And as part of the proposals for the development in the area, we'd be securing a network of monitoring and cameras that allows us to understand exactly how the development's coming forward and performing. So that's our approach to the area as a whole. We have a transport approach that's designed to minimise those trips, monitor those trips, and mitigate those trips. I'm aware of separate questions that we've received about existing congestion in the area and highways related challenges. Given the detail of those questions, I think it's best if I come back in writing on those with a worked technical response from our highway safety experts, because part of those questions concerned speeding as well.
Okay. Just something just jogged my memory there. Ryan, did we not have a question similar or on this topic earlier on?
Yes, and David's just alluded to that. It was a question around the traffic along King's Hedges Road, and as he's intimated there, I think we'll have to take that away and publish a written response along with the other questions on the website within the next 2 weeks.
Just to touch on that quickly, it's a question that relates to congestion in the peak hour on that road, but also speeding off peak. So a difficult pair of challenges to resolve, but we'll respond to how we can deal with that and some detail about that situation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We've got 2 minutes left to the end of this session. I don't think we'll be able to take all these questions that are left. But perhaps I can direct one to either Karen or Mark. It's access to the proposed new site of the water recycling center. Are you giving consideration to a dedicated exit directly off the A14 to avoid using either High Ditch Road or the B1047?
We are, thank you for that question. There are 3 traffic and access options that are included in the consultation material, and one absolutely is direct access of the A14.
Right. Okay. Just so we can keep to time, I will say thank you to everyone who has contributed. Thank you to our panel and to everyone who's asked questions. The rest of the questions, we will answer them and provide the answers on the website. And the video of this webinar and the questions, we aim for them to be available within 10 working days from today so that you can see them. And of course, questions, feedback, and comments you can send to the email address that is currently on the screen. And the webpage email is also there, and the telephone number. Can I remind you, please, to register for the contact list? The link to the registration form is also on the webpage. And a quick reminder, I said earlier on at the beginning that there will be a poll come up at the end. It's only 6 questions. And we really would love you to answer those questions for us. And there's a very important one there about the format of this forum and what it should be moving forward. So please, please do take the time to complete it. The next meeting will be in the autumn. So do please monitor the webpage for more information on when that will be exactly. And at this point, all that's left for me to say is thank you, everyone. Panel and attendees, thank you and good night.